last 50 years. There were Cold War conflicts, contemporary world conflicts, religious and ethnic conflicts, terrorism, the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, and 9/11. The essential question is, in what ways are current world conflicts influenced by the decisions of yesteryear? Terrorism and new threats. With the end of communism, the world faced threats in other forms, which were like terrorism. Terrorism is a use of force, violence, or threats to achieve some sort of goal, political, religious, or ideological. It could be international, which would be worldwide, or domestic, which is like one place pretty much. And the definition of communism is a theory or system of social organization based on the holding of all property in common actual ownership being ascribed to the community as a whole or to the state. 9/11, which was September 11, 2001, it was in response to an attack on the World Trade Center and the U.S. Pentagon by a terrorist group named Al-Qaeda. The U.S., with its allied countries, launched a war on terror, which was an intelligence war. It was pretty much an impossible war since we couldn't tell who the terrorists were and who were innocents. An estimated about over 3,000 people died, and it was from several different countries that these deaths happened. Here's a video about 9/11. Excuse the language. Okay, thank you. And then, of course, there were other threats. Most of the conflicts today are between ethnic and religious groups, and the conflicts go back decades, so it's not really like new conflicts. And they usually are perpetuated by fundamentalists. Those are people who believe in the strict following of the basic truths and practice of a faith, and they go back to the fundamentals of a belief. The war in Afghanistan, it was in October of 2001. The U.S. and coalition of countries attacked Afghanistan. And the attack was on military retaliation for the September 11th attack by Al-Qaeda on American targets. It was followed by several weeks of diplomatic effort to have Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, which is now dead, handed over by the Taliban government, and it was actually unsuccessful, as you guys probably all know. The Taliban were toppled shortly thereafter. The brief war had been successful for a short period, but insurgent Taliban emerged in 2006 and began using suicide tactics copied from jihadist groups elsewhere in the region to attack coalition forces. Suicide tactics would be like 9/11, where the pilots went straight into the building. They didn't try to save themselves. You go down with your mission. In 2009, the Taliban attempted to spread into Pakistan, but they failed. Refocusing on the threat from Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan and Pakistan, March 27, 2009, the president announced a new strategy with a clear and focused goal. The goal was to disrupt, dismantle, and defeat the Al-Qaeda in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and to prevent their return to either country in the future. And they would require more troops and resources. Here's a video about the top 10 secrets of the Al-Qaeda.
Terrorists are determined to intimidate the United States. To confront and defeat this terrorism
This is a map of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and it's pretty much showing you where Swat Valley would be, right here in Pakistan. Embrace the picture. There was a fear of terrorism that led to the war of Iraqi. The reasons for the war were to continue the war on terror. Iraq actually violated the 21st UN resolution, and they wanted to prevent the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction by disarming Iraq. They wanted to end Hussein's evil dictatorship and actions and promote the democracy in the Middle East. Some of the reasons against the war would be Al-Qaeda doctrine would consider the government of Iraq deficient because it didn't adhere to a fundamentalist version of Islam. They actually didn't have any WMD in Iraq, but Pakistan and North Korea did, so they posed a bigger threat than Iraq. And the U.S. not care because they did nothing when the use of chemical weapons on their own people happened in Iran, and it provided intelligence. It was not true, supported Hussein's dictatorship in the 1980s. Events of the war. January 2002 to January 2003, Bush made speeches emphasizing the threat of Iraq and urged the UN to enforce their resolution, the 21st resolution. The U.S. conducts WMD inspections on Iraq, but they did not cooperate. March 19, 2003, Bush declared war on Iraq. April 9, 2003, U.S. forces to take control of Baghdad. April 14th, major fighting ends and the post-war planning begins. July 7, 2003, world learns of faulty intelligence and there was no WMD. December of 2003, Hussein was captured. 2004 to present, attempts to rebuild and establish a stable government is continued due to insurgencies. January 10, 2007, Bush announced new direction for Iraq, which includes more troops and saw decrease in insurgencies in March 2008. And in November 2008, mandate signed that will keep the U.S. forces in Iraq for the next 3 years. I figured I'd end this with a cute little funny video. I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks for watching.